This video is sponsored by Squarespace. Final prediction based video of 2023. Let's look at the driver market. I made some pretty out there calls at the start of the season. Let's see how many I got right, because, well, nothing really changed, not at the end of the year anyway. De Vries may have departed, Lawson may have come in and out, but for the first time in I think forever, the F1 lineup at the end of one season is going to be exactly the same at the start of the next. 14 out of the 20 drivers on the grid are out of contract at the end of next season. Checo, Fernando, Charles, Carlos, Pierre, Esteban, Alex, Yuki, Daniel, Valtteri, Zhou Guanyu, Nico Hulkenberg, Kevin Magnussen, and of course Logan Sargent. So let's see if there was any method behind my madness. Let's talk about it. This video is sponsored by Squarespace. Oh, that one was sponsored by Squarespace as well. 2024. Hopefully the driver market isn't going to be quite as volatile as last year. Thanks for that, Seb. It certainly wasn't as volatile, but that doesn't mean I'm going to get any predictions right. I'm going to go from my most confident team lineup and end with my least. Number one, my most confident prediction of a driver lineup in 2024 is Ferrari. Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc will maintain their positions at that team. There was never really too much doubt. I know Carlos was heavily linked to Audi, but there doesn't seem to be much behind there. There's kind of rumours at the minute that Carlos is interested in a 2-year extension. And honestly, I think from Ferrari's point of view, I don't really see why you wouldn't, unless you're really backing like a junior coming through, like a maybe Ollie Behrman, or you're concerned about losing Charles. But even then, I think Carlos has been a fine servant to that team, and I've said this before many a time, I think that is the perfect driver pairing blend, I guess. Fred Vasseur's coming in, I think he will do what needs to be done to strengthen that team from a strategy point of view. You could certainly argue that with Vasseur coming in and having such a good relationship with Charles, that might put Carlos's nose out a bit. Yeah, I think Fred's managed that quite well. He's not favourited Charles too much, not that I've seen anyway. If anything, the direction of the car, only after Japan did it really fall back into Charles' favour after starting as much more kind of understeery and a bit more to Carlos's liking. Number two, I'm going Aston Martin, keeping Fernando Alonso and Lance Stroll. Grass is green, sky is blue. Shock. Lance Stroll will be an Aston Martin F1 driver in 2024. Obviously, it's not been great relative to Fernando. I've got very little to add that I haven't said already. I think I've made my opinion of Lance Stroll as an F1 driver quite clear. He's good on his day, but not good enough to be in an Aston Martin alongside Fernando Alonso, that's for sure. Team number three, Alpine, Gasly Ocon. Look, I get it, okay? Yes, Ocon and Gasly had beef in the past. They did, and again, I think Gasly feels a bit insecure, definitely at that team. He kind of feels at times that maybe Ocon's getting preferential treatment, but look, he came in, stood on his own 2 feet. It was always unlikely that that was going to change because it was a new driver lineup, and Esteban felt very set. Gasly, finally, you got that double French driver in that French team. The only thing they're missing now is a factory in France. I still think they should move to Viry and sell Enstone to Andretti maybe, but that's probably not going to happen. Now, of course, the likelihood of both of them finishing on the same number of points is pretty small. It was only 4 off, to be fair. There's only 4 between them, but they both also should have really got more. They both had their fair share of bad luck, for sure. Like, no doubt. Now, I'm sure there's many of you out there who'd love to start your own online business, maybe start a blog or a portfolio to host all of your lovely work. But why wait for 2024? We've still got days in 2023, and that's where today's video sponsor Squarespace comes in. The all-in-one website building platform that I've been using for years, with thousands of beautiful drag and drop templates, no coding knowledge needed, and it's all free to give it a go. It's only when you want to publish your website that you have to pay anything. You know you want to. Head to squarespace.com/TommoF1 to get 10% off of your first website or domain, just to sweeten the deal. Number 4, McLaren. Norris and Piastri remain at that team. Lando being tempted away and Oscar just completely failing to meet any expectations. Well, neither of those two things happened. Lando has resisted the temptation of going to Red Bull. I know Christian and Helmut have been very flirty with him, trying to coax him over to the Red Bull side, understandably, of course, but also Oscar's just smashed it out of the park. He's had a fantastic rookie season, one of the best rookie seasons we've seen for a while. The car started trash, they turned it around, and all of a sudden now they're looking like Red Bull's biggest threat, I think, going into 2024. Ferrari and Mercedes have got to bring a whole new architecture, and Aston Martin is still kind of between upgrades. McLaren are on the straight and narrow and moving in a pretty positive direction, and these two at the wheel, it's exciting. But certainly McLaren are under pressure to give Lando a car that he can fight with at the top, or feels like he can fight with at the top in the next couple of seasons. Otherwise, he's right to be tempted away. I bet there was some sweaty palms at McLaren when they started the season right at the back, and surely he was considering options elsewhere, surely. But I believe him when he says he wants to do the winning at McLaren. He doesn't want to leave to achieve. He wants to bring McLaren with him, you know, and I appreciate that. I respect that, right? He's been at that team for a long time now. They supported him as a junior, gave him the shot in F1, and it's paying dividends for all of them now. Team number 5, Mercedes, staying with George Russell and Lewis Hamilton. I think Merc will have a competitive package to fight in 2023. Consistently third quickest again. I feel like that over the course of the year. I mean, Lewis is, top 9 rate every race bar Qatar and that disqualification where he still finished on the podium. But at no point were Mercedes in the fight with Red Bull. Now, if he did win the title in 2023, would he leave? Maybe. I still think that's probably more likely than him staying if he wins the title this year. Question is that going to happen? Would Lewis have retired if he won the title this year? What do you reckon? Comments below. Let me know. Probably. I still think as soon as he gets 8, if he gets 8, he's gone. I think that's why he's here. That's why he's motivated. Also, like winning an 8th title with Mercedes, he would have brought that team up in terms of how he helped bring that team up in the first place when he joined that team in 2013. And they struggle, and then they can bring it back up again. He can win a title, and he's like, oh, cool, like my job here is done. Lewis is a very, very shrewd businessman. He's involved in a lot of different things, and I think he's well prepared to leave F1 behind him, but not without 8 world titles. And then alongside George Russell, I mean, of course he's going to stay. He did everything to prove that he fully merits a top-tier racing seat last year. He's clearly not going to go anywhere else. George, as much as you could argue this season was weaker than last year. Obviously, he didn't get the win, didn't outscore Lewis, but at the same time, I think when you factor all things, he made some mistakes last year. He made some mistakes this year, actually. George has clearly got that dog in him, like, no question. It would be very short-sighted for Mercedes to look past George Russell for the foreseeable future, especially if Kimi Antonelli can do what a lot of people think he can in F2 in 2024, them two together. Whew, blimey. Crikey, as George would say. Team number 6, Haas, Magnussen and Hülkenberg. The value of having 2 drivers with such experience in your team. Just don't change anything and I'm going to get all correct. 6 out of 6 so far. Buzzing. Love it. Obviously, it's not going to last. When are Haas able to get themselves into a position where they don't have to rely on experience and they can go with young, exciting talent? Maybe in 2024. No, Haas went backwards. The thing is, I can't put too much of that on Hülken and K-Mag. Drivers do have a responsibility to the development of the car. When you've got both drivers, both well into their 30s, with so much experience, with running completely different specs of cars as well. Towards the end of the year, K-Mag had the new spec, Hulk the old spec, and they're both having the same issues. They're both occasionally getting to Q3, but they're both having the same race issues. Then it's on Haas, innit? Come on, surely. I retain the logic, right? If they'd have shown potential to catch up maybe with Alpine and start to knock on the door of the top 5 teams, then maybe it's a different conversation around a more exciting young rookie who potentially has a higher pace ceiling. But as things stand, they'd be silly to change up Hulk and Magnussen because they're nowhere right now and they're going to need these two to make the most of what is a subpar package. Team number 7, Red Bull Racing. It's of course Max Verstappen, who has a contract until the end of 2028. He's there for the long haul. Alongside Daniel Ricciardo. Sorry, Checo. It's not going to happen mid-season. Definitely not. But I think in 2024, I'm going to predict that Daniel Ricciardo replaces Checo. Now, this could still happen, I guess. Technically, Checo and Max are confirmed. Now it's got to this stage where Daniel had the injury. He did come back. He did give himself an opportunity, but I think without the injury, if he'd have stamped all over Yuki Tsunoda a little bit more, he maybe put himself in with a shot. Obviously, yes, Checo has a lot of financial clout behind him, which helps his position, and who knows what his contract stipulates, right? If they're going to drop Checo, Red Bull have also got to say bye-bye to a lot of money, and they've got to weigh it up, haven't they? Even if you could guarantee that Daniel's going to get more out of that Red Bull relative to Checo. Is there value to Red Bull in that extra performance? Is it, in the middle? Is it gaining them anything in terms of the constructors? Maybe because we just don't know where everyone else is going to be. Remember when I made this prediction video, he was not in an AlphaTauri. He'd just come off the back of the McLaren stint, and a lot of people understandably thought we'd never see him in F1 again. There is still a significant gap combined with the tiffs that they had last year. We talked about Brazil to death. There's clearly something going on there. It's clearly not quite as harmonious and rosy as maybe a lot of us thought it was. It is easy to forget the Verstappen-Perez kind of squabbles, but the thing is, Checo's not close enough to Max for that to really be a thing. He's got his fair share of race wins, but he clearly wants more. I think what he's been saying, he's talked about how he wants, to move the car setup in a direction that suits more him. This quote doesn't read particularly well now, does it? I mean, look, Checo, that car's never going to be to your liking. It's going to be on the nose because that's what the lead driver can extract. You either need to adapt to that and learn how to drive that style, which that's almost like an impossible ask, or just accept that you're going to be frustrated with that car. If you're going to be in a Red Bull, that's kind of the sacrifice you have to accept. Because he can push all he likes for that car to be in a direction that suits him. It's not going to happen. Now, perhaps Red Bull will look at the limited data that they can get from Daniel and think, oh, actually, he's not the driver he used to be. And maybe he isn't, but I believe he is. I believe that driver is still there. These drivers are human beings. We all have tough periods in our careers. And obviously, when Daniel had that test at Silverstone, which was the test that prompted De Vries getting fired, he obviously must have shown Red Bull that there's enough pace in Daniel Ricciardo. He's still got it fundamentally, and with a bit more time behind the wheel, he could be at least as good as Checo. Otherwise, why would they bring him back, I mean, he certainly wouldn't have come back unless he got assurances that there was a chance at the top Red Bull seat, and you're not just going to sit in that AlphaTauri Racing Bulls, Toro Rosso, Minardi, whatever it's called. Team number 8, Sauber, Alfa Romeo. Not Alfa Romeo, sorry. Just Sauber. Alfa Romeo deal will be gone by 2024. Correct. So maybe they'll be calling it Sauber Audi by then with a Ferrari engine in, which is a bit weird. But they will not. Anyway, Zhou Guanyu is driver number 1. He's staying. Alongside Alexander Albon. I was seriously contemplating doing a Joe Norris lineup for this team, but I'm going with Alex. Okay, so Zhou Guanyu, Alex Albon. You need to sell it to me a bit more, Tommo, of the past, because right now that is looking awful. Let's start with Joey Boy, and as far as I'm concerned, he pretty much caught up to Valtteri Bottas by the end of the season. He was within like a tenth and a half, and that was very impressive to me. In his rookie season, I think he outperformed most people, including my expectations. He's doing bits on track, he's young, he's got massive support in China, which is obviously a hugely important market, not just to F1, but to the team as well, based off what we saw in 2022. Anyway, if he can keep building on that momentum, there's no reason why he can't be a stalwart in F1. Look, Joe has disappointed this year. A lot of it just comes down to how highly do you rate Valtteri? Do you still think he's the guy who outqualified Lewis, 30% of the time over 5 seasons together? Or is he on his holiday, put his feet up, kind of Kimi Raikkonen-esque towards the end of his career, and Joe's still getting beaten? Because that almost entirely determines how good or bad you think Zhou Guanyu is. For me, I think Valtteri is probably more towards the Kimi side than he is the prime Valtteri side. But it's impossible to say for sure, isn't it? Then we come to Valtteri. I know Valtteri fans. I'm sorry, okay? I'm sorry. I know he's got a contract till the end of 2024. I appreciate that. But like I said at the start of the video, contracts, they are legally binding documents, but there are payout clauses. In fact, Valtteri got bought by Mercedes from Williams when he still had a contract. I think a driver who's younger and just as quick, not necessarily quicker, is surely an appealing proposition if they're available. And Audi want to be a title challenging OEM from 2026 onwards. But do I think in 2023 he'll do enough to absolutely consolidate completely his position at that team? I don't see it. And with Alex Albon's contract up at the end of 2023 and Williams, I don't see a big step forward, I'll be honest. Okay, so Williams obviously pleasant surprise for me now. Back then, obviously, look, did they make a massive step? No. Like, relative to the cars around them, sure. They certainly didn't pull a McLaren, but then McLaren weren't as bad in 2022 as they were at the start of 2023. Surely, and I know you're going to call me biased, okay, surely if you're sat there at the end of 2023, a 28-year-old Alex Albon versus a 34-year-old Valtteri Bottas, I'm going with Albon, and I really don't think that's because I love Alex. Yeah, I mean, come on. Who would you pick? Right, based off what we've seen now in 2023. You're going to pick Alex, of course you are. Audi should be trying to sign Alex Albon to that team for 2025, and then they take over the branding in 2026. And I definitely think they should be going for that. Like, 100%, especially after the season we've seen from him this year. If anything, I'm still back in the Albon side, just maybe a year too early. Whether that's the right move for Alex, it's going to be a gamble ultimately, whatever he does. Team number 9, AlphaTauri. Okay. Red Bull, sister team, junior team, whatever you want to call it. Driver number 1 is Yuki Tsunoda. Driver number 2 is Ayumu Iwasa. I should have predicted Lawson, and it would have still been wrong, but it would have been more reflective of what actually... Obviously, Iwasa did have a very good F2 season, although didn't Doohan nip him at the points at the end? Yeah, he did by 3 points, did Jack Doohan. So Iwasa finished 4th. Still plenty of super license points. Would have had enough to jump into an F1 car. I predicted no De Vries and Yuki to still be there, which I think is a minor W, just because I know a lot of people were very much like, De Vries is going to bang up Tsunoda, job done. Well, that didn't happen. I didn't think it was going to happen. I just got the replacement wrong. I do think Red Bull will sell that team, whether it's to Hyundai, to Porsche, obviously Ford's with Red Bull now. They've kind of sold the naming rights, I guess. If it's going to be Racing Bulls, Cash App or Visa or Hugo Boss or Adidas, all these other brands that have been linked to it, they are going for a Aston Martin style, you know, you have your lead sponsor name, your actual race team name kind of goes into the back. Kind of like Racing Point did, I guess. Who makes it from De Vries and Tsunoda? Look, I've gone Tsunoda because I do think Yuki's going to outperform and outscore Nick De Vries in 2023. It's a huge ask for Nick to jump in and be at the level. Sorry, Nick, but I was correct. This is going to be Yuki's 3rd season, not just in F1, but at that team as well. 5th in Formula 2 last year, just 7 points behind Logan Sargent. Picked up 2 wins, 2 P2s and 2 P3s. Performance in the feature 8 at Le Castellet in France was a serious highlight, incredibly impressive. He had an inconsistent year, but his peaks were higher. So 5th last year, 4th this year from Iwasa in F2. There's worse F2 careers that have been awarded with an F1 seat. Look, I think, again, Iwasa's peaks were higher, but he didn't have that consistency. The kind of consistency that Teo Pourchaire had, that Oscar Piastri had when he won it as well. Super crazy consistent. He's going to go and do Super Formula next year. Is Ayumu, I wish him the best over there because, you know, Liam Lawson made a massive impression when he went and did Super Formula. Ayumu needs to make a big... Like, he needs to win it, I think, in his debut season. You know, he's a Japanese driver, so he'll have... I'd like to think he has a bit more of an understanding of these tracks than, you know, Liam would have. Motegi, Fuji, Suzuka, etc., etc. I got a lot of love for Ayumu Iwasa. I was supporting him this year. He was technically in the fight at the finale, but he would have had to score maximum points, and basically Vesti and Pourchaire scored nothing, and he still would have been like level with Pourchaire on points, but wasn't to be. But F1, I think that ship's probably sailed, unfortunately, for him. But no, alongside Logan, I've decided to go with Sergio Perez. Wrong. Ricciardo replaces Perez, Albon leaves to go to Sauber, so then Checo slots in at Williams, brings the money over, blah, blah, blah. Wasn't to be. Checo had a stinker in 2023. I can't think of a driver who made more mistakes. And for a driver who's so consistently over the course of his entire career been a reliable set of hands, it's not nice to see, it's not pleasant to see, but you got to call it as you see it, and it's not been anywhere near good enough for Checo. I do think that the sponsor, the money that he brings into Red Bull, is what's kept him in that seat for this season. Would he take a seat at a team like Williams now? Do I think that? Look, I think having the shot at Red Bull, do I see him being motivated to stay in F1 to go into a backmarker team like Raikkonen did, like Bottas is doing right now? I probably don't. Although, again, the Williams trajectory right now seems pretty good with Alex leading the way. And, well, Logan did hold on to his seat. So there's that. You can argue whether he deserved it or not, but he still got it. So there we have my final Predictions. I mean, the stinkiest one was almost certainly a Wasser. Otherwise, I mean, I did predict 6 teams to stick, and turns out, well, 9 teams stuck. I think my Wasser bias definitely resulted in me overlooking Lawson because, yeah, like in hindsight, him doing Super Formula as well was going to set him up super, super well. And I thought De Vries wouldn't do as well as Tsunoda. I didn't think it would go quite as badly as it did in the end. But let me know what you think in the comments below. What was the most wrong driver prediction that you made? Did you think, I don't know, Lewis was going to get replaced by Vesti or something? Because that was never going to happen. Unless Lewis won the title, then maybe he would have left and Vesti come in, who knows. That was a pleasure as always. Much love to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. My name's Tommo. Thanks again. Have a good one. Ta-da.